Hey, everybody, it's Chris Aiken from the Classic Metal Show and the Aftershocks podcast. And I know you want to see this next episode, but right before we do it, just want to remind you that if you have an Amazon device, whether it's a TV or a Fire Stick or Fire Cube or whatever it would be, a Fire Box if you're old school, make sure you add the CMSPN to it. Just look up CMS Podcast Network on your Amazon device. Add the channel, and you will get every episode of all 4 shows for free right there on your TV. Make us part of your TV viewing every single day and night, all right? It's the CMS Podcast Network, cmspn.com, and it is now on Amazon. So get it, all right? All right, here's the episode you came to see.
All right, here we go. Welcome to another episode of Aftershocks at aftershockstv.com on the CMS Podcast Network. And joining us today on this episode, we've got Dallas from Carolina Hard Rockers, the LA Maybe, who are getting ready to drop their debut full-length record titled Dirty Damn Tricks. It comes out March 26th. Dallas, man, thanks for coming on. How you doing?
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked to be here, talk a little rock and roll. And just see where the conversation takes us.
Absolutely, man. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on, man. You know, first off, first thing I want to talk about in terms of your band. If anyone out there wants to say rock is dead, I think if they listen to this record, it'll shut them right the fuck up because, including Gene Simmons, he can go. You know, we're shutting this to Gene because I'm telling you, man, we've had a handful of great bands on the show that have a somewhat similar sound to what you guys have, and they're just kind of getting started themselves. But me personally, I think you guys top it all, man. This is a great record. I mean, before I even heard a single note from any of your music, the first thing that did catch my attention though was the band's name, the LA Maybe.
Okay.
So yeah, when I initially listened to it, I just thought you guys were probably from LA for obvious reasons because you have sort of that sound. Yeah. But actually, you're on the opposite side of the coast. Like you said, you're in North Carolina and Charlotte. So I guess just real quick, man, tell us about how you guys came up with that name, the LA Maybe. Where does that come from?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I was sitting in the Chicago airport. This is probably back in had to be 2016 at this point. And I heard someone behind me, you're sitting with those kind of back-to-back seats. Someone behind me say, just in passing, as you just kind of hear, snippets of conversations. I heard someone say something like, yeah, she gave me the old LA Maybe. And that just jumped out to me as being just such a fun phrase. And I knew what they meant. They were saying, flaky, can't commit to yes or a no. You're just kind of living in that limbo. And I texted the band chat we had going at the time of just, some of the guys and said, we should call ourselves the LA Maybes with an S. Mm-hmm. And Foz, our drummer, said, let's just drop the S. I was like, all right, sounds good. So we did that. The name was born. And that was before we knew at all what kind of music we'd be playing. We didn't have any original songs, none of that. We just had the idea for a band, and then we had a name. So that was back in 2016. And then, skipping through the years, we had a lot of changes in lineups, personnel, stuff like that, changes in goals and plans for the band and all that. And eventually, Alvy is the most recent to be a member of the band. He's still the new guy. And he joined in August 2020. So he's only been in the band for about 6 months. Okay. And as soon as he joined, 4 days after we all decided, it was a mutual good fit, we were in the studio recording. And we finished the album. That would probably been August, September. And we finished the album by November, early December. And just a couple weeks ago, we got the final mixes and masters back for everything. And so it's officially done. So, full album, brand new band, and about, call it 6 months or something. It was a lot of work.
Yeah. Like you said, it's paying off, man, because it sounds fantastic. You just brought up Alvy. Obviously, you said he's a new one to the band. And for those out there who are not aware of Alvy, he obviously was one of only 4 singers to audition for AC/DC to replace Brian Johnson back in 2016. So, that's great, obviously, having someone like that in your band. Talk about how you wound up connected with Alvy. How did he wind up joining the fold with you guys?
So he was singing for a Guns N' Roses tribute band, and Guns N' Roses is my favorite band. We actually were kind of doing something similar, and we needed someone to fill in on vocals for our tribute. So we started looking around at other tributes, and I saw this young guy, kind of our age, sounded great. So asked him if he'd be able to fill in for the tribute. And he was like, he was polite, but could tell he didn't really want to do it. And he'll tell you, having heard his side of the conversation now, many times, he was, he didn't want to do it. He was blowing me off. And some time went by, a couple weeks, and I sent him a message being like, well, hey, do you want to do original music? And I sent him some demos I had, and he was like, all right, this I'm into. Let's do this. And some of the demos I sent him are on the album. They ended up making the full album. Okay. And so you'll hear him on those. And that was when we realized that he was a singer looking for a writer, and I was a writer looking for a singer. So it locked right in. We meshed well. And like I said, I mean, immediately got to work. Rasan, our bass player, and I, we drove up to, he lives in Raleigh, he's a couple hours north of us. Okay. And we drove up there just to jam with him and his band. One day they were doing, guns practice. And at the same time, we were doing our gun stuff. So we all knew the same songs. So we were all just jamming Guns N' Roses in a warehouse for an afternoon. That was a blast. And man, I can't say enough good things about those guys. The band's called Night Train, and where a lot of musicians and bands would have really probably been standoffish to me and Rasan for coming up there, literally auditioning their singer in front of them. They were so nice, so welcoming, encouraging of Alvy to chase his dreams of doing original music and not get stuck in a tribute band and that kind of thing. Not that there's anything wrong with that if those are your goals. And man, it was just like, we love those guys so much. And in fact, our first show is actually opening for them. So it's kind of, just works out that way.
Awesome, man.
But yeah, so that's how we got in touch with him.
Dude, awesome. You're not telling the story right. The way I've heard the story is that he chose you guys over AC/DC. That's the way I heard.
Yeah. That's the way I heard it too. Let's go with that.
Yeah, that's way cooler. Right?
there wasn't at all a 5-year difference between those two things.
No, not at all. Come on, merge it all together, man. Make a blabbermouth headline.
Actually, it's funny you said that, because another earlier interview I had today said exactly that. They were like, so Albie turned down AC/DC for you guys, huh? And I was like, whoa. But of course, we do have the headline. We thought of the clickbait version. It was singer lost job to audition for AC/DC. This is his band now. Boom. Clickbait for you.
There you go. There you go. Perfect. Well, cool, Dallas. Well, I mean, let's just talk a bit about too, when you guys first started playing together, the band, which I was made aware that the band originally, you guys were a Journey cover band. So I guess, my question is, how in the world is this music spawned out of guys who were playing in a Journey cover band together? Because I mean, obviously, it's a much different sound. I no disrespect to Journey. I mean, I love Journey, but I'm just interested how you guys transition and be like, you know what, let's go and make original music that sounds completely different than what Journey is.
Yeah, that's fun. That's funny. From the outside looking in, I could see how that is kind of a weird jump, but actually, Journey was the jump outside of what was going on. Gotcha, if that makes sense. So we've always been on that path, and then the Journey thing. Of course, tribute bands and stuff. When you're trying to be a working musician, it's a great way to make a living and to make some money. So you jump into kind of whatever band's hiring at the time. And I met, it was namely me and our drummer Foz in the Journey tribute. And we looked around after we were ready to leave that, and we were like, well, we have 4 guys here ready to do a band. Let's start a band. And then, over time you lose guys and gain guys and stuff like that. And so we eventually ended up with all the right guys in the right lineup. But me and him today still could probably crank out a few Journey songs for you.
Oh yeah. Awesome.
Very cool, man. Well, Dallas, let's talk about the music on the new release. Matt and I both, I'm just going to tell you straight up, we were both blown away by it. And
yeah. Well, let me not to interrupt, but how many of the 10 songs have you guys heard?
We haven't. We have the whole thing.
Yeah. You have the whole thing. Oh, nice. So the first people I've talked to that have actually listened to the whole thing then.
Oh yeah.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
And more
than else, I just have to tease it.
Well, it's for us, I mean, we get 1,000,005 records a week, and every single band that we lists, well, this is going to sound like bop, 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 bop. And maybe that's the publicist. It probably is.
Yeah, a little bit.
You guys's was like one of the first ones ever where the press matched the music. Oh, yeah. I mean, it listed the GNR thing. It listed some Black Crowes kind of reference, which we picked out, in various songs in it.
That's awesome.
And it's very refreshing to, as an outside person that gets 1,000,000 records, it's very refreshing to see a band not trying to reach further than they are and just say, this is what we are. Deal with it or don't, man. So that's great from you guys, man.
100%. Yeah, that's exactly our attitude. And that's not, and one thing we try to be really good about is we're not going to trash other bands. We're not going to trash any of our peers, many of whom we know and love, the other bands, you know, that are in our genre and about our age. We're absolutely not here to trash any, you know, old school classic bands, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses. Those are the reason we're playing music. We're not here to demean anything about music. We're just here to literally do what we like, what we want to do. And some people are going to gravitate towards that and enjoy it. And some people are going to call us ripoffs, hacks, and hate us and whatever. And that's fine too. You're allowed to have your opinion, but it's not going to slow us down. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing. And, you know, people eventually will kind of get on board because we have, or at least we try to be as authentic as we possibly can.
No doubt, man. Well, dude, talk a little bit about the writing. I know you mentioned that you're the writer. Is it just you? And how do you write? Do you come up with a riff and then bring the band in to explore it? Or do you come up with everything and then hand it to the band and say, okay, this is what we're doing, or some mix in there? What?
Yeah, it's somewhere. It depends on song by song, but it's kind of in there somewhere. A lot of the songs will start with something that I've come up with, a riff, or sometimes I'll come up with the whole song start to finish, you know, drums, bass, everything. Right. And of course, when I bring it to the guys, they understand that what the drums I've programmed and the stupid bass I've played that's not their part. You know, they can do whatever they want to do to it. It's their time to add their stamp to the general idea. But a lot of it starts with a seed. I'll bring a seed to the table, or I'll bring 10 seeds to the table, and the guys will be like, okay, 1, 2, and 3 suck, but 4 is really good. 5, maybe if you change it, you know, and then it kind of works like that. The lyrics primarily came down to pretty much just me. Drizzle, our other guitar player, helps with some of those as well. And Alvy actually helped write the chorus for Mr. Danger. But other than that, the lyrics are pretty much up to me, and that's that's less of an ego statement and more of just like a that's how we work statement. And there's gonna be we've talked about collaborating more for future projects. You know, we're a really young band, so that's kind of how Dirty Damn Tricks came together. But obviously, that's not. You know, I don't try to be like a dictator or anything. It's not my way or the highway. Like, it's definitely a collaboration. But a lot of the stuff starts and kind of develops from me.
Well, and you know what? If the band is okay with that, then that's cool, man. I mean, that is usually the hallmark of a great band, as well as why most great bands only last a record or two, because then everybody's ego steps in. So if everybody's down right now, then you're in a perfect spot. Yeah,
we kind of have the Alice in Chains thing going on where Jerry wrote pretty much everything and Lane was kind of the voice of it. So that's kind of at least for this album, that's kind of where we were. And who knows where we go from here? It could be more collaboration. It could be more of the same. And we don't try to stress too much over the process of how we get there. We just want to end up in a place where everybody's happy with it. We don't really care about who writes what or, you know, any of that stuff. So as long as it gets there, as long as it sounds good, we're happy.
Sure. Yeah. You know, I'm going to piggyback off what Chris said before, Dallas. You know, he was mentioning the fact that the influences that you guys list, I mean, you could hear them in the whole record. You know, like I said, a lot of times bands, like I said, maybe one of them you hear what they list. I mean, everyone you guys list, Guns N' Roses, AC/DC, Black Crowes, Van Halen. I mean, you hear that in there. You could really pick it up. When you're writing songs, or even when you're deciding, you know, what songs say to put on a record, do you take into consideration the fact that you want sort of an even mix and blend of those sounds to make up an album? I mean, do you tell yourself like, well, maybe, you know, I need to come up with a song that has more of like a Black Crowes vibe to it, or maybe let's speed it up in more of a Van Halen, Guns N' Roses thing? Or do you just simply sort of just go with the flow and whatever comes out naturally comes out? I mean, how does your songwriting go?
That's a really insightful question. Less of the first, more of the second. And when I say that, I mean more of just going with the flow and seeing what happens. But we're not so caught up in our own, you know, bullshit that we don't know the song Mr. Danger has AC/DC vibes. You know what I mean? We're not going to sit there and be like, what are you talking about? Like we understand. Yeah. And that was deliberate. You know, the first riff came out, Drizzle was over at my house tweaking an amp or something, and I was sitting there testing it, and I just kept playing the da na 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 na, that riff, and I was just kind of like, that's good. I recorded it on my phone, and it has an odd meter to it, so it's not exactly AC/DC where it's just, you know, 4/4. It was kind of alternating between 6/4 and 4/4 for those musicians out there. So it had a little bit of a modern spin on it that way. And then I knew I wanted it to drop after the big intro. I wanted it to drop into like just a classic AC/DC riff. Okay. And then I also knew that I wanted to take it elsewhere. I didn't just want to live in that AC/DC space. I wanted to take it somewhere else with the pre-chorus. I wanted the chorus to be like a pop hook chorus that you walk away singing. And I think hopefully you guys agree. A lot of the songs on the album are that way. We have kind of a pop chorus in the middle of a rock song.
Definitely.
And we want people to have those earworms and be able to walk away and sing those things and you know, make it want you come back for more, basically.
Sure, no, absolutely. You know, the other thing is that, you know, the sounds to me, you know, throughout the album, it goes sort of back and forth, and it's unpredictable in terms of like how you place the song on a record, which I thought was great the way you guys just structured that all out. And what's great is because you don't know what kind of style you're going to hear from one song to the next. And to me, I mean, I love that because it's very unpredictable, and that's what keeps me on, you know, on my toes and really engaged in the music because you're really excited to see, all right, what's coming next. You know, considering that the influences are, you know, are very evident in the songs that we were just talking about. I mean, in terms of placement on the record, did you intentionally, or do you, you know, when you did place them on the record, did you intentionally place them according to what they sounded like in order to sort of to keep the listener guessing? I'll just give you an example. Yeah. Like the songs, two songs, Sucker Punch and Peace of Mind. Obviously, they both have, you know, heavy Guns N' Roses influences, whereas in the middle of those two, you have Oh Sugar, which to me is more of an AC/DC vibe. And then after Peace of Mind, you have When I'm Gone, which to me is very Black Crowes influence. Is that done purposely for the reason to sort of keep the listener from maybe hearing three sort of, you know, Guns N' Roses type of, you know, influence tracks in a row? Did that go into any of your thinking, or am I way off on that?
So we don't think of them, and I know I just said we understand where the influences come from, but we don't think of them ourselves as being, you know, the AC/DC one, the Guns N' Roses. We don't think of them in those terms. Of course, we do think of them as fast, slow, hard, heavy. And the biggest consideration was key. So 5 of the 10 songs are in the same key, A flat. And we didn't want to just have A all in a row. And you're just like, it's the same song 6 times in a row, you know? So that was the biggest consideration. How do we split those songs up? And then the other consideration was, this is just kind of an inside personal thing. Track 6 off of Appetite for Destruction is Paradise City, and that's my #1 favorite song of all time. So I've always been drawn to track 6 on an album. So I put When I'm Gone at track 6 because that song just has a lot of sentimental meaning and value to me. So that's why that's at track 6. But the rest were kind of just spread apart based on a key. So,
okay, right. Sure. Makes sense. Okay.
Well, Dallas, one lyrical one I got to ask about. Tell me about Fake, because that one was the one that I really kind of was like, all right, there's a story to this one that is definitely real and not made up. So tell me about that story.
Fake's just the story of being a young and hungry rocker, you know, constantly being told, no, you're not good enough, get a real job, blah, 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 blah. And it kind of goes through some interesting like changes in the perspective of the lyrics. So verse 1 is from first person saying like, I'm going to go, I'm going to do it. And then chorus 1 is the crowd, everyone telling you, no, you're not.
Right.
The second chorus, or the second verse, is struggling up against individual people you might find in the industry wanting to take advantage of you and stuff. And the second chorus is those people saying, no, you're not going to do it. You're just a fake, blah, blah, blah. The bridge, which is my favorite part, is the first person, you, whoever it is, standing up and saying like, no, fuck all you. We're doing this. We're going hard. You're not going to stop me. Nothing like that. And then obviously just, you know, ends with the chorus. But that's kind of where that was coming from. Less a specific story and more of like a vibe and a feeling that, you know, everybody feels when you're coming up in music, rock music especially. Just all the rejection and stuff.
I hear you, man. Yeah. Well, you know, one of the things, Dallas, in addition to doing Aftershocks, I do a show called the Classic Metal Show, and with it we do, you know, 80s sounding music, you know, everything from, I don't know, Slaughter to Cannibal Corpse and everything that came out in that era, sort of, so to speak.
That's two different ends of the spectrum there.
Oh yeah, it is, but I'm just talking more like the same time frame of rock and metal. Yeah. You know, but the one thing, and I'll just tell you straight up, it drives me bananas, is so many of those fans in that era will not even give a band like yours a chance. As much as the music would fit into their collection if it came out into 1986 or 1987, they don't even want to hear it now because it's not one of their bands. It wasn't right. It wasn't that you guys didn't open for Deep Purple on the Perfect Strangers tour, so therefore you don't.
I see two things at work there. I see one, the nostalgia effect, and two, I forgot to be honest. So we'll go back to one, the nostalgia effect. The bands you grew up with have a special place that you can't You can't replace that. I just remember number 2. It's the sequel effect. They see us as a second coming, part 2 of something that already happened. We're not original. We're not this. We're not that. And I disagree with that. I think if you listen to the music, it stands on its own and speaks for itself. But I do understand where they're coming from. I just don't think they're really critically listening or giving it a chance. A lot of times they might listen to the first 2 seconds and be like, this band sucks. Like, it's like, what? Like, 2 seconds? What are you talking about? Like, you know the stuff you listen to? Have you heard Cinderella's lyrics lately? Like, they don't hold up. They don't hold up. I'll tell you.
Right.
But it's like, it's just, it's just part of the thing. It's just how it goes. Now, actually, it's funny you bring that up. Something I've been talking about on a lot of these interviews is the future of rock and roll. I'd love to talk about it with you guys and see what you think. My question to you would then be, name me like a few bands that you think started rock and roll. And I don't mean let's not go back to like medieval lute players, like the music industry as we know it. Like, who are those 3-4 bands? We all know them. Shout them out.
Sure.
Elvis, Beatles, Who, Stones,
Yeah. All that.
So a lot of those bands, a lot of those artists are still alive. Some of them are dead, but a lot of them are still alive. In 30 years, they won't be. Every artist we know and like is going to be gone.
No, you're totally right.
Which tells us that the rock genre is super young compared to classical music, hundreds of years old. Tons of generations have gone through it. Rock's 1 generation old. A lot of these people that started it are still walking the earth.
Right.
So what happens when they go? Do you still just listen to their music and refuse to listen to anything new and the genre dies? Or do you shift your mindset as a fan and say, I love the classic stuff. I'll always love the classic stuff, but they're gone. It's time to go to these new shows and support these new bands. And that's where we are right now. We're on the cusp of that. So it's up to bands like us. It's up to bands like 30 Honey, Joyous Wolf, South of Eden, Blacktop Mojo, Small Town Titans, all of our peers to usher in this new wave of rock and show people that, the genre is not going anywhere, but we need the fans to kind of shift their mindset and get out of what you're saying. And that doesn't mean you stop listening to Slaughter. That means you also listen to us. Music is not a zero-sum game. You don't have to just like one band, and then if you decide to like another band, you have to unlike that first. That's not how it works. Right. You can like 10 bands. It doesn't matter. Exactly. You can support all these bands at once. So that's what we need to do.
I agree, but I'm going to devil's advocate this one a little bit.
Oh, good. Let's talk.
Did the last 10 years, 15 years of everything being disposable pop and disposable rap, does that hurt your chance to actually build that next audience? Because the generation, the newest generation doesn't even have that base to build their rock attention from.
I don't know. So I'm 28, so I missed I wasn't alive for all the heyday of rock, I guess you could say, which is unfortunate. I would have liked to have seen it. But I would argue that what I know based on history of it, that rock was always kind of the outcast. You go back to 1987 when Appetite for Destruction was released, there was other pop and stuff on the radio like that was, not cool, disco, whatever it was in the 70s and stuff. So rock has kind of always been that outsider, and it's still obviously as big as it is. So we see as the internet takes over the world, which it has obviously in the past decade or so, that it becomes less about one band. It's the biggest band in the world, and more about 1,000 bands with cult followings each. You know what I mean? And will we see another Rolling Stones? In 30 years, I mean, I guess we'd probably have to. Somebody's got to fill those stadiums, but it seems unlikely. In the rock genre. I mean, there's got to be someone that comes along, though. Might as well be us.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Exactly.
The only issue is that, and as Matt and I are both that age, I'm certainly that age. I'm 52, so I definitely lived through the era you're talking about.
Right.
And rock was definitely not the outcast in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, it definitely had its heyday. You're right.
It was chart topping. Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet Child of Mine #1, stuff like that. Of course, that was its moment in the sun. But am I wrong in saying that before and after that was kind of a fluke almost?
Yeah. No, you're right.
I don't know. See, I don't know. I don't know that I agree, because I mean, you can go forward. You could say Korn, Disturbed, Papa Roach. These bands all had big into the 2000s, into the mid 2000s.
I agree with them being big bands having massive followings, but if you're talking about if you're considering all music, then pretty much the only metric we have are the charts, right?
Sure.
So how many Korn songs were #1 on the charts? How many Linkin Park, et cetera? Linkin Park, I guess, probably had Numb was probably up there.
You?
But I couldn't tell you, I mean, was it number 62 or was it number 1, that kind of stuff. So I don't know. But the days of rock being number 1 on the Billboard charts, where everyone in the United States is tuned in, or whatever, listening to the same song on the radio, you hear it 50 times. Like, maybe we'll see that again. That'd be awesome.
Great.
But now it's Bruno Mars and all this other stuff, which is totally fine too. I like all of it. So I'm not not gonna fault anyone.
I think the other difference too is that these days I wouldn't say nobody, but back, I guess, me and Chris were growing up, everybody wanted to play guitar, everyone wanted to play drum, everyone wanted to play an instrument. Nobody wants to play instruments, and everybody wants a turntable. It's an instant gratification thing. They don't want to be patient, take their time to learn to play these great songs. They don't have that patience. So I think that's another factor you got to tie into with all the technology, how it's so easy. Well, back then, I mean, that's you just, I mean, there was no Pro Tools. You couldn't record in your bedroom. So it was this sort of massive thing. And I think what it is just obviously, in terms of radio, there really is no rock, radio and rock. I mean, rock on radio anymore. The rock radio station in Columbia, South Carolina, where I grew up, closed down entirely and turned into a top 40 station. So it's like, I mean, the classic rock station is still going on, but again, that just speaks to what you guys were saying about not wanting to embrace new bands.
Right.
Yeah.
So
no, you're right. Yeah. Bingo.
They just want to hear, Freebird for the 1000th time. And it's like, I get it. Freebird's awesome, but like, there's other stuff we got to help, get started here. We can't, if people were just so obsessed with horses, then the car never would have existed, So we got to have innovation at some point. Like,
that's right. Good point. Yep.
At some point, it's got to move on.
Totally, man. Well, listen, as I was mentioning, and you just brought up a bunch of bands I was going to mention, because there is really
it's a movement. It's a movement.
And we're starting to see that. I mean, like you said, you brought up, South of Eden, you said Dirty Honey. I mean, it's not even just in the United States. I mean, even if you go to Canada, you got Invertigo, great band, has that sound. You've Electric Mob out of Brazil. It's really becoming not just even domestic. It's really becoming global, and I mean, like I said, we can't be more happy to hear and see that there is this new wave of classic rock and that sun-stripped sound from the 80s that's kind of coming back. So, I mean, and for you, I mean, out of all those, let's just put it this way, with a band like, let's just take Dirty Honey, right? I mean, what's interesting about them is they made their name and way as an independent band. They got to where they were without a label, right? So in terms of you guys, now let's get to more the business side of things. I mean, where are you guys at in terms of what you're planning, or would you like to see happen with the band in regards to the business side of things, since today's music world is as crazy and predictable as it's ever been, especially with rock? I mean, are you going to plan to sort of follow that same pattern as a Dirty Honey, or are you going to look to, do you want to work with a traditional label and have that sort of
probably not so much. We're not seeking out labels. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
If at some point we're presented with an offer that makes sense to us, then I'm sure we'd take it. But the likelihood of that happening seems slim at this point. First of all, we don't bring a lot to the table, frankly, yet. As good as our music may be, that doesn't sell, records necessarily. So they're looking more at hard data. How many units have you sold? How many likes do you have? That kind of thing. And we're working on that. And we're trying to make ourselves as valuable and as good and as big and as appealing as we possibly can to labels and fans alike. However, we're more than happy to go the independent route as long as possible, and maybe forever, depending. It just depends on how it goes. There's a lot of power with independent musicians these days. Chance the Rapper won a Grammy with no label support,
right?
So the time for indie musicians is now, and it's exciting to be able to retain all the power. Now, a record label these days, always, I guess, is basically a bank. So when you hear of so-and-so signing with Geffen or whatever, and they got $100,000 advances, like,
just loans, they
have to pay that back.
It's loans. I know,
and they're gonna recoup that off of record sales and all that stuff. So if you're Guns N' Roses and your first record was Appetite, you did okay. But if and not even at first, that first year, nothing,
nothing,
nothing. Crickets. So it took a while for that to even hit. And man, a year's a long time when you think about it that way. Just sitting there being like, man, I think we suck. It failed. Like,
no, totally,
But and we're super DIY bands. All the album art is in-house. All the music videos and stuff are with very close friends. All of the recording we recorded every note of that album ourselves in our own studios at home on a computer. For those people that want to say you can't make music on a computer, We're not on tape machines. We're on Pro Tools, and it's fine. You can make good music with Pro Tools.
Oh yeah.
I hear all this stuff being like, you can't play the computer. It's like, dude, if I sat you down in front of a computer, you wouldn't even know where to start. So let's relax with that. But yeah, you can still play real instruments on a computer. Sure. And then of course we send it off to our good buddy Machine to mix and master. He did a huge roster, Lamb of God, Crowbot.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Oh wow, I didn't know he did that. Wow, okay.
Yeah, Machine's a good buddy, and he did all the mixing and mastering.
It's great.
And, we've worked with him before, and he's fantastic. So, but if I had to calculate the money we saved not going into a recording studio, I'd put that figure between $10,000 and $30,000 for every hour we spent on this album. If you were to take a regular label time, I don't know, $115 an hour, whatever it is, for every hour we spent on this album, astronomical. And it's free for us because 3 of us have our own home studio. So we did everything in-house.
Awesome.
Constantly Zooming together, passing files via Dropbox. You know, technology was very much involved in making this album.
Yeah,
no doubt. And the one thing that you do save is the enslavement factor, like you were saying. You can do whatever you want. If you do a year and a half with this album and it doesn't do what you want, or it doesn't reach the right fan base that you want, and you want to change direction, you have complete control to do that. If you signed with Frontiers or whatever, the minute you said, well, we're going to change something up, they're going to be like, nope, bye. You know, that, you know, and then you almost have to start over. And that all by itself. I've been saying long before the records even stopped selling that what bands needed to do was hire themselves a marketing agent, not a record label. And especially today where there's you know, outside of doing shows, which obviously nobody's doing right now, there's no physical product moving, or not a lot of it. You know, it just makes sense for a band like yours that has the talent, and people are gonna, if people hear one song one time, they're gonna look into it. That's just the way your music sounds. I don't know how to explain that necessarily. It's just a sound where it doesn't sound like everything else, but it's familiar, I guess.
That's the line we tried to walk very deliberately. How can we make it so you draw comparisons to your favorite artists, but there's also that sprinkle of something new that makes you come back for more and makes you change your mind. You know, we're not an AC/DC ripoff. We're not a Guns N' Roses ripoff. There's Prince licks in our stuff. Like there's Bruno Mars licks, because we played in a variety band. We played a bunch of Bruno Mars and Backstreet Boys and all this crazy stuff. And you think that doesn't sound rock, but when you have to learn all that stuff note for note on guitar, you start to pick up little stuff, little things, little tricks that you sneak into the chorus of Oh Sugar, you know, and little stuff like that.
Right.
And it all adds up to make this kind of fresh take on an old thing, which I think is exactly what you're saying. So I'm glad to hear that.
Sure. I'm gonna give you your choice based on the history of another band like yours, Dirty Honey. They did consecutive tours with Slash and then Alter Bridge. If you had to pick one of those two bands to be the opener for a full tour, would it be Slash that brings in mostly older guys, or would it be Alter Bridge, which brings in the younger guys?
I hadn't even considered the fan base, but I'd go Slash just because he's the reason I picked up guitar. So I'd have to be there for that. So
easy.
You would just pick that just to stand on the side of the stage 30 times.
I haven't met him or had any interaction with him, but I do know Duff McKagan pretty well and have played with him and stuff. So, and I know Duff's brother super well. In fact, I just got off the phone with him about 10 minutes ago.
Oh wow!
So
cool.
I know the McKagans pretty well, but yeah, I've never had the good fortune of meeting Slash or anything.
Yeah, he's a good dude. Quiet. You'd be amazed. Yeah. I mean, I guess you shouldn't be amazed because he really doesn't say a whole lot on stage either. But
never. Yeah.
It is weird when you meet him and he's like almost ashamed to enter. Hey, how you doing? You know, he's real mellow, and it's like,
yeah, I totally get that. I definitely have a little bit of that in me. I'm definitely an introvert. As I sit here doing press with all you guys.
Really, I was going to say, you're surprising me, man.
No, I'm very happy to just sit at home and not talk to anybody. But this stuff, if you ask me to talk about myself, here I am. Let's do it.
No doubt, man.
That's the lead guitarist coming out.
Yeah, there you go. Well, dude, obviously, man, the pandemic has, put everything on hold, kind of. And, when it finally lifts, whenever that is, hopefully this summer, but summer, fall, early next year, whenever it's going to be, every single band and their brother is going to be out there at the same time, and we're going to get 1 million records at once, and we're going to get 1 million tours at once. Is that going to make it really difficult for a band like yours that does not have a, reputation, a touring reputation to even get on shows? Because, you're going to be you're going to be competing with bands that have, you know, probably legitimately sold 10 million records back in the 80s or 90s for the opening slots on shows.
Interesting. What bands are you thinking of there?
I would think, like, I'll say if Slash goes out and does another Slash and Miles Kennedy tour, you're gonna be competing with the you know, the Warrants and Great Whites and Dawkins and those style bands that would pull the opener. Rat, you know, stuff like that would get the opening slot for that. And it would make, to me, it would make more sense, and it always makes more sense. I hate when bands do that. I would like to have, like, I discovered Dirty Honey really at a Slash show. You know, I saw Slash. And I'll be honest, I was drunk as fuck going into the place, and I walked in and I saw there was an opener. I was like, "Oh, motherfuck, you know, this sucks."
Yeah.
And then I walked in and it was Dirty Honey, and they blew me away. And I was like, "Yeah, now I'm a Dirty Honey fan." Just like
I love being blown away by openers. It's sadly pretty rare, but I do enjoy it when you're like, "Oh God, here they come," and then they start playing. You're like, "Okay, this is awesome. I'm in, 100% in."
It's a great feeling when it happens, but not enough bands do it. You know, and it's all business. You know, and you guys being completely independent, I'm sure you don't have $100,000 to buy onto a Metallica show or whatever, or Metallica.
Yeah, we've been discussing buy-ons and stuff with some of the people. So when I say we're independent, we don't have a label, but we do have people we work with that are not us,
right?
That are much smarter than us. And we've definitely discussed buy-ons and all that stuff. And I don't know a lot about that, but I was told that it's something you want to avoid, which was my first instinct as well. And it's not so much that it's you know, cheapens you or anything like that, but it's the fact that you can get quickly stigmatized as a buy-on band. And now all of a sudden you have to buy on to every tour because everybody knows you'll do it.
Sure.
So that's not something that try you guys call my band right now and tell them that we're going to buy onto a show, and I'm just going to let you deal with what happens. Like, you're going to get a whole lot of go fuck yourselves from my so that's
and you know what, it should be that way though too, dude, because you know,
we'd rather not play the show than buy onto the show. We're not that desperate. Like we believe, I mean, we definitely believe in our music enough that the opportunities will come up.
Sure.
Or they won't, but we did our best either way. But we're not gonna try to slide in a back door or something like that. So as far as buy-ins, but as far as shows and stuff, you know, we have agents we want to work with that we're in the middle of establishing relationships with and stuff. So we'll see if anything happens from there. But yeah, who knows?
I'm just gonna tell you straight up, dude. It's a great stance to have, and I won't name the band just because I actually like the guys in the band, and it's really not them, it's their management. But I know of one band that I have 3 different friends that are in bands that bought in, and 2 of the 3 broke up because they lost all their money and didn't gain any fan base out of it. And the third came back. They had enough money, but they still didn't gain any real fan base out of it.
It's a sad story. I mean, nowadays with the internet and especially post-pandemic, just jump on a live stream or something. Like, you don't have to leave your house. Like, come on, man. Let's be.
Are you guys doing live streams? Is that something you guys are interested in?
We've actually never done one, and there aren't any plans to. We'll do informal stuff, maybe, you know, sometimes without even instruments, but no, nothing serious. And that's not to say we won't. We've just been really focused on other stuff, honestly.
Sure.
Getting the album done, you know, we ducked our heads in the studio and didn't look up for 6 months, and that was a lot of, you know, half the pandemic right there. And ever since then, it's just been a whirlwind of interviews and texts and publications and tweets and Facebook and marketing and figuring out how to get our album, you know, hard copies, all this kind of stuff. And it was just
hard work, man. Yeah,
sure.
It's been nonstop. So but we're super excited. We can't wait to get it out there. I'm glad you guys have heard the whole thing. Everyone else I've talked to has only heard the couple singles,
the songs. Yeah.
So I got to ask then, what is each of your favorite tracks if you had to pick one?
I still think Sucker Punch. That's really.
I like Sucker Punch a lot. What's the slow one?
When I'm gone.
Yeah, when I'm gone. Track, maybe it's not slow. Track 3, I think.
Oh, Sugar.
Oh, Sugar. Yeah.
Nice.
I like Oh.
That's my personal favorite too.
Yeah, it's just, dude, it's just a fun record, man. It's, you know what? I mean, maybe I'm going to be old guy in the room here for a minute, but I'm tired of listening to the same old shit that I've been listening to forever. You know, even like a Van Halen. No offense, rest in peace, all that stuff, but tired of listening to it.
You can't listen to the same thing too. I mean, I always consider Guns N' Roses my number 1 favorite band. and I will to the end of time. But I couldn't tell you the last time I actually listened to their music. Like it's been years.
Yeah.
Like
we overplay so much, and then it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, you need something fresh, and I think
Yeah,
that's
I'm
obviously what you
always-
guys.
always looking for fresh stuff, and when
Yeah,
I find it, I love it. I mean, and I found it in Greta Van Fleet when that first EP hit in 2017, and that excited me because we were in the middle of writing some stuff in a similar vein that we had no idea if it would work. And when Greta Van Fleet exploded, it was like, okay, so there is a demand for this. So now let's keep going. Let's double down because we know this is possible. And then, you know, of course, my personal favorite new band out there is probably it was Dirty Honey, and then Small Town Titans just barely edged them out.
Yeah,
They're both so good.
They're awesome too, man. Yeah, we
They're
interviewed them, and they're amazing. Yeah,
Rival Sons, another one.
Yeah, and they're a little older though. They've been around for what, 15 years?
Yeah, but,
Wow.
but musically, people think they're a brand new band, so
That's
they
true.
qualify as brand new,
And then you have Marcus King, who lives right down the road in Asheville, North Carolina.
right?
And and he's killing it doing his bluesier stuff, which I love. And then there's also bands like Bishop Gunn, Tyler Bryant, of course, killing it
sure.
Black
so
Sabbath.
much. Yeah,
Magnolia
Blacktop,
Bayou.
Texas. Yeah, I mean, anyone to have the balls to say like there's no good rock, like I'll just send them a link. I actually made a playlist that's posted on our band Spotify page called "Don't You Dare Say Rock Is Dead," and it's just a list of all these bands. Like,
Nice.
Yeah, awesome. I like that.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, and that's the cool thing, dude. Between this retro, I'm gonna call it retro rock sound, for lack of a better term, between that and the return of kind of the desert rock sound that's coming back as well. There's tons of great music to hear. People just got to stop being so lazy and go into either their classic rock station or the Boneyard on Sirius XM or the playlist on whatever that says, you know, the bands Metallica, Guns N' Roses, whatever, you know, and dig a little bit and find stuff.
yeah. Well, we need to see, I think, two things happen. One, the Boneyard and those kind of places, they should stop putting time limits on that stuff and start going more by genre and less by time. I understand if your station I understand if your station is 60s, do 60s. But if your station is classic rock, sprinkle in a Dirty Honey track. Honestly, no one's gonna know the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna think it's awesome. They're gonna Shazam it. They're gonna see the album came out last year and they're not gonna care. They're gonna be like, sweet, add to library. And I think the other thing is these big bands, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, and some of them need to start taking us and these other bands that are our peers on the road.
Yeah.
And because they need to realize that it's their time to help their kids, help their son, you know, kind of ride the bike.
They've got to replenish the scene.
And the thing is that's how those bands made it. I mean, Metallica especially. If Metallica didn't have that first Ozzy tour, you know, way back when, they would not have become the biggest band on the planet.
Yeah, well, and Guns did Stones, Aerosmith, Iron Maiden, all these different things. And we do see that. Guns took Dirty Honey on at least a couple shows. Slash took Dirty Honey out. So I mean, and it's not to try to cause problems for kind of what I guess I call the mid-level older bands, the Rats, the Dawkins, the people you just mentioned. No shade there, but I think it'd be better for the whole genre to bring out some of the fresher faces to those shows and introduce people.
Yeah, I think those guys are just afraid that a band like you is going to just kill them off the stage and know just take over the crowd. So that's probably one of the reasons why they don't want to take out a band like you guys.
Exactly why they don't take. Those bands I could tell you in 100% certainty, and this is a guy, and I'm a guy that actually works with several of those bands, so I certainly can tell you how it works. They have no connection at all to who's opening for them. They're doing
it's all agents and stuff.
They're doing fly-in dates to casino here that's drivable to casino here, that's drivable to casino here over a 3-day weekend. And they fly in and they'll play with, hey, whoever's opening is opening. And there's
they honestly might not even meet them or anything.
No, they don't. Yeah. They definitely don't. I mean, it's very
so the real answer is then, you know,
it's up to the promoters really to want to do.
True. Very true. And honestly, no fault to them, but their only goal is, you know, let's put butts in seats. Let's make money. How do we do that?
See, I'll put fault to them now. See, I'm going to disagree with you fully there. I'm going to put all the fault to them because what they're doing is temporary fixing when they're in a long-term business.
True. Very true.
Nobody owns a club so that they can own it for 3 years. You know, you own a club so that you can put bands, so that you can put 2,000 people in the room for the next 30 years and you can walk away with your $5 million and retire at 50. That's how that's why you do that. And it's always short-sighted when it's like, well, we'll bring in Doc and we'll pay him $20,000 to come in for a fly-in show, and then we'll just shit on the audience and not do anything to encourage them to come back for another show. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and the audience is all 50 plus, but they're gonna buy, they're gonna buy the liquor and all that stuff. So
Yep.
yeah,
exactly.
I mean, and some of the bigger national bands get it, like, obviously we're talking Slash over and over again, and Alter Bridge, which both of them have Miles in them, and Miles Alter Bridge has proven to bring out younger bands.
And Steel Panther's pretty well known for that. AC/DC, I've heard, has done that as well.
They have.
And we have a connection to them, so who knows? If you know them, tell them.
That is true. Yeah, that's right.
And we have the connection to Guns too. So we're going for both of those spots. We'll see if anything happens.
I think you guys are gonna do well, man.
Dude, you guys got to get at least one gig with an AC/DC.
Yeah,
at least one. At least one.
It is kind of funny to me to think that the best like two bands we have a chance for opening for are like two of the biggest bands in the genre. It's like opening for Metallica would be just like so far out of reach, but opening for Guns N' Roses is actually a pretty decent possibility for us.
Sure.
Wow.
Just because of friendships with Bruce and stuff like that.
Sure.
So it's kind of funny, but of course that's not anything set in stone. But
right.
Sure.
Well,
we'd love it to happen.
We're hoping that they're opening for you guys in 5 years, dude.
Yeah, right?
We are huge fans of what you're doing, man.
Definitely.
I really appreciate that.
For just one more time to reiterate, the name of the band is the LA Maybe, and the name of the album is Dirty Damn Tricks. It is, when is it out? It's
out March 26th. And actually a funny story about that album title. We one of our drummers buddies was over. It was just the two of them, none of the rest of us were here. And he's not an AC/DC fan at all. So he was kind of bagging on him, making fun of him.
Right.
And he, at one point he said the line, man, I just don't get it. They're dumb song, like Dirty Damn Tricks and this, that. He just said that, like, making fun of dirty deeds, kind of.
Yeah.
And man, Foz just loved that. So he put it in the band chat, and we added it to our list we keep a running list,
right,
that we all share of funny band names. So we added Dirty Damn Tricks to that band name list. And when it came time to name the album, we all agreed that was a good album name. So it ended up becoming the album name.
Nice. Well, let's hope a lot of people have the same don't get it about your band as your drummer did about AC/DC, and hope that you have the same success.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I'll tell you what, before we let you go, Dallas, why don't you tell people where to go online to follow the band and to see the videos, and once shows are announced, see where you're playing and all that stuff.
Absolutely. Best place to go is lamaybe.com. Pretty simple. There you're going to find, all the socials, all the streaming services, wherever you are, we are. So just search us there. And the absolute best way to keep up is to sign up for our mailing list. And if you just scroll to the bottom of any page on our website, you're going to see that link there. And you're actually going to get 10% off merch. We have a lot of cool merch in the store when you sign up for that mailing list. And I send out a weekly newsletter. Actually, I send it out personally. I write it myself, and it goes out to our whole list every Tuesday. And we often reveal little snippets and teasers and show stuff that we don't show other places, and update guys and give them give them discounts. Just all kinds of stuff happens in that newsletter. So that's the absolute best place to stay in touch. But our website, it has everything: store, tour dates. It's pretty straightforward.
Very cool, man.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
All right, man. Well, dude, once again, man, the band is the LA Maybe. The album is Dirty Damn Tricks. And Dallas, thanks so much for joining us here on Aftershocks.
Yeah,
thanks,
guys.
Bro. Thank you so much again. Can't thank you enough. I'm really stoked you guys like it. So thanks.
Yeah, keep it up, man. It's great stuff. Thanks for listening to Aftershocks. For more episodes, go to our website at www.aftershockspodcast.com. Visit us on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for more news and information on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe, listen to, and review all episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast platforms. For your music listening pleasure, visit our website or go to www.shockwavesradio.com. For all comments and questions, please email us at info@aftershockspodcast.com.
All right, everybody, another great interview right here on Aftershocks TV. And before we go, just want to remind you one more time, make sure you get over and subscribe to the CMS Podcast Network, cmspn.com. You can watch, you can listen, you can subscribe. to everything that we do. Not only us, but the Classic Metal Shows, Shockwave Skull Sessions, Talk to Me. It's all there. One site. Get 4 great shows. Never have to do anything again but be entertained. So check it out. CMSPN.com, CMSPN.com, CMSPN.com. Until next time, folks.